from Sachi Studio, and he's a resident lead generator and overall just paid expert. And Samad is, just a great guy when it comes to funnels and anything digital marketing. So without any further delay, we're just gonna hop into the questions. So the first question that we have is, what are the common mistakes that most people do when it comes to both organic and paid? And I think, Dean, if you want to take this one first, and then we'll move over to Samad.
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, let's focus on organic and content marketing, which is a really big umbrella for a lot of things. The way I define content marketing is this could be any number of things, from you choosing to commit to a 90-day cycle for your LinkedIn content strategy, to creating a blog strategy, to doing email, rather than paid media. It's more focused on paid advertising platforms such as LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, which is really more what I do. If I had to identify one mistake, or I guess one misconception, is that with respect to content marketing, a lot of people think it's free, even if you do it yourself, which I don't agree with, because number one, time is money. And so content marketing is more of a long game. You're not going to see results until, let's say 6 to 12 months down the road. So during that time, you're doing a lot of the content on your own. Technically it's free because you're not paying someone, but you're also paying with your time, number one. And number two, because it could take 6 months to see any results, if you do it incorrectly, and then you judge your efforts 6 months down the road, it may turn out that you did it all wrong. So there you just wasted 6 months of your time. So kind of what I like about paid advertising, what I've been and why I've been doing it for the last 6 years, is that it's pretty immediate. You start to see results if you do it correctly within 1 or 2 months, if not less. So that's sort of how I define content marketing and paid advertising. Samad, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, I think most people right now, specifically, what they'll do is they kind of put content marketing in one bucket and paid into another bucket. And that's either a mistake or actually just a complete misconception, if I were to kind of label it that instead. And I totally agree with you, Dean. Like, basically content marketing, which I actually add in the inbound aspect to it, right? Like, you're trying to get more and more pieces of content onto this wide ocean of the internet, and hoping for that. I'm going to use this analogy, but hoping for that bottle to kind of come back onto shore, if you will. So it does take a lot more time. It could take it should be bucketed in the same way as SEO, and might actually pair well, and should pair well with SEO, versus paid. If you were to kind of do the two at the same time, paid can, quite frankly, optimize your content marketing really well. So you don't really want to kind of pit the two together, if you will, right? Like, you don't want to have on one side is, content and another side paid. You want to have a strategy that kind of takes the two together and makes them, kind of a blended strategy in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, at least in my world, I mean, I've been doing marketing for like 10 years now, and we always get pitted against each other, like, which is better, content marketing or paid media. But I think it's more of a symbiotic relationship, where if it's done correctly, my role as a paid strategist is to really amplify your content marketing, especially if you have good content.
Right.
If you don't have any content, then that's another story altogether. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an either or proposition. It can be both, depending on your time and your resources, and obviously your budget. But the reason why I've stuck with paid media for the last 6 years, after I've done everything else from SEO to general digital marketing, is just, I think paid advertising, regardless of the platform you're choosing, it's the most empathetic to your time as a business owner, because having dealt with a lot of business owners, the most precious resource you have is your time. Time is money. And if you do it right, paid advertising, I think it's money that makes money over time. So
totally makes sense. Yeah.
So going off of that, then what do you guys think are the biggest opportunities right now, across both, paid and organic?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's 2021. I think there's tremendous opportunities across all platforms. So, if we're just looking at organic content right now, I think and a lot of this just comes out of the whole pandemic and some of the industries that came from it. But podcasting bigger now than ever. So easy to start a podcast nowadays. In terms of good organic reach, I'm very bullish on LinkedIn, especially if you're in the B2B market. I do think it's a very complex content strategy if you were to do LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of people try and fail, but if done correctly, LinkedIn can pay dividends. On the paid advertising side, obviously there's been a lot made about iOS 14 and its impact on Facebook advertising. I'm still bullish on Facebook advertising. I don't know if it's as effective as it used to be, but it's still effective. YouTube, if you're willing to invest in the good video media. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Saman?
Yeah, so on the organic side, it's so blended in a way, right? Like, so for LinkedIn, because I know you brought up LinkedIn, and I totally agree with you. It is paying dividends right now, but we don't know how long it's going to be, right? Like, it's kind of Facebook 2000, maybe 2008, 2014, 2008 to 14, if you will. So as they're adding more and more video components, right? Like, more people are actually putting more videos out on LinkedIn. You're kind of have to look at that as your runway, if you will. So the organic side of LinkedIn is killing it right now. It's doing well. On the same note, all of the podcast platforms that you just brought up, Dean, like Apple just came out last week saying that they're now monetizing their podcasts, which is really cool. It does add another barrier to entry on that paid, or that paid element is another barrier to entry. So it's still good from an organic perspective, but you should really be considering it as just a drop into the content marketing bucket, if you will, right? Like, so you just want to keep putting stuff out on your podcast. You don't have to worry about how long it's going to take to produce it or anything like that. It doesn't have to be big, like costly, whatever. It just needs to keep going out there to kind of keep that drip. And then on the paid side, the one that I'm kind of bringing up particularly, especially from my vertical that I like to do a lot on, which is e-com. Google is doing a lot with Google Shopping right now, as well as on Google Reviews. So I actually kind of put Google Reviews in this whole could be organic and could be actually extrapolated, if you will, into content marketing. Testimonials and case study type of elements could be coming out of that. And on the paid side, if you're doing a lot with Google Shopping, as well as even just a Google search campaign right now, and this happens every couple of times a year, we don't know when it happens, but Google likes to just change things up. And if you're doing a little bit of both on paid and on the organic and on the content side, Google Shopping and Google Display and ads in general are doing really well right now. So on top of really killing it on YouTube, if you're putting that strategy correctly on the paid aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know what type of businesses we have on the Zoom right now. I think GMB, Google My Business Listing, it's a really big low-hanging fruit that a lot of local businesses don't really take advantage of. You don't necessarily, SEO can be, I don't do SEO anymore, but it can be an expensive thing. And I've always told business owners, if you're trying to optimize for SEO, pick your low-hanging fruit first, which doesn't cost a lot. And I'd say go after Google My Business, optimize your listings, get lots and lots of reviews, work on uploading posts, because what I found, having talked to a couple of SEO strategists, is if you're willing to upload several posts a week, treat it like a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. If you're willing to upload new content several times a week, depending on the business you're in, you'll see traffic being driven to your GMB just by being consistent on your posts. So food for thought.
100%. Yeah. I mean, going just really quickly on that Google and hitting on the lowest hanging fruit, I'd say just focus on Google reviews, because that's the only one that's not only a place where you can put reviews in, it is also taking care of all of our, all of our listings in general, right? That's our search engine. So keep on that particular one, and then you can amplify it with a whole paid component. Actually, right on Google My Business, you can actually go in and start ads right on Google My Business once you start optimizing it.
Yeah, I'm just going based on my experience dealing with a lot of localized clients. Some of the clients I pick up, especially on the Google Ads side, I tell them, even though I don't necessarily offer it as a service, I'm like, if you are willing to put in some time to get more reviews or solicit more reviews from your clients, that puts you ahead of like at least 60% of the competition, because most of your local competition, they're not savvy enough or aware enough that they're like, oh my gosh, I need to get more reviews for GMB. And if you're willing to do that, you're ahead of the competition. Then you just have to worry about the other 40 or 50% of your competition with other stuff. But just that alone will put you ahead of 50% of the competition, if not more.
So going a little bit back into, the organic reach side, how do you guys feel about TikTok?
You want to go first?
I think again, it goes into the type of business you have. You don't have to strictly go into, like, I'm just gonna do a blanket strategy and, oh man, a new like shiny metal object just came in, so TikTok is now something I got to go do, right? So again, it really just goes down into your business in general. For what we do specifically, a lot of e-com, TikTok is doing fairly well. For lead generation, it can be done well, but you got to really kind of look at it in a different kind of mindset, if you will. So like the people that have been doing, TikTok well on the lead gen side, in my opinion, right, are people that are actually utilizing it to, kind of create their short form video content. So they just use it strictly to be their video editing tool. They don't need any other like fancy stuff. They can just use TikTok, create that. Don't care about what they really are putting out there in terms of, if they look goofy or not. Obviously, it's got to be like good, solid advice, but they don't need to do a whole bunch of takes or any of that nature. It's just, down and dirty, quick. Those are the gems that usually actually organically do well on TikTok, but also could amplify everywhere else, right? You can take that same video, you can download it, you can put it out on IG, on Instagram or Facebook or any of that nature. So if you want to, kind of, ride the TikTok wave, don't look at it as, oh man, it's another place I got to go. Just make it your first stop, if you will, to just make your video. Because again, a lot of people just, are scared of video editing and all of that nature. TikTok does a good job with that particular component.
And before you go, Dean, if I could just say something about that, when it comes to businesses, a lot of times, like Samad said, they just want to go everywhere. And my suggestion is always get good at one or two and then expand, because then you spread yourself too thin and you just, start forgetting about it altogether. Yeah, go ahead.
What was I going to say about TikTok? So it's definitely not I think a lot of people, especially the older generation, like 40 and higher, a lot of people have this perception that it's like this platform for where you do dancing and stuff like that. I mean, that may have been the case 2 years ago, and to some degree it may still be, but don't underestimate the demographics on TikTok. Certainly a lot younger than some of the other platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn. But there's a lot more to it than just people dancing. You find all sorts of, I guess, professional material on there. I've seen people in healthcare do TikToks on like trying to stop the misinformation of COVID and just get great organic reach. I've seen, obviously digital marketers do well. I don't do a lot on TikTok just because I feel right now my time is better spent elsewhere in terms of lead gen for my clients. But with that said, I think if you're in the e-commerce space, you definitely want to look at TikTok. I will say from a paid advertising perspective, their dashboard is still in its infancy. So it's really hard to get real granular with targeting and what sort of results you want to get. So just be aware of that if you ever want to do TikTok advertising.
Gotcha. And we have a question from Trin. And she's asking, is posting content on Google My Business more effective than on Facebook and Instagram? Or which do you think is the most effective in terms of reaching your customers?
Yeah, let me go first on this. So, I mean, first of all, I don't think it's binary. You should be ideally everywhere. But if I just have to answer it like in a yes or no and format, yeah, if GMB reviews, I think that's the way she's asking it. GMB reviews are more effective than any other platform, just because it's a really strong signal to Google, which owns Google My Business. It's a really good SEO signal. So if you have to get reviews from anywhere, definitely start with GMB first. Probably Yelp is second, and then maybe Facebook is third.
Yeah. And just on the question, right? So like types of content that you would be posting onto GMB, right? Like that really does matter. So I think if the question from Trin was like, is it better to put it out on Facebook and IG versus, on Google My Business? I think if you're going to actually be putting out promotions, you can actually put that on Google My Business. That's actually a good type of piece of content. Actually will do better on Google My Business than you would on Facebook or IG. Than anywhere else. And I think another misconcept here, right, is for a lot of us right now as local businesses, if we're driving around, and hopefully we can do that a little bit more now since we're kind of on the tail end here, but we're going to be going on to Google Maps often, and all the Google My Business reviews that you're getting and generating there do show up on Google Maps. So just take that into, take a note of that, I guess, if you will, from a local business perspective. People go to Google Maps just to go find something. They don't use it to go find a name of a business. Sometimes they're just typing in a category, and that's, again, the power of Google. So you want to be found even quicker, not only because, Google Maps obviously hits it from a geographical location. It's going to obviously find the closest things, but some people are now going in this whole element of actually putting in, checking the reviews right on Google Maps. So put more on the GMB, you might get more foot traffic as well.
Yeah, I mean, because Trin's business, she's I think it's HVAC or water and damage restoration, which is a very, very, very competitive niche. So I highly recommend you get as many reviews as you can to your GMB profile and try to break that that GMB, what do you call it, the 3-pack map thing, where someone types in, let's say, water and damage restoration in Rockville. You want to make sure that your listing shows up within the top 3 for the Google Map pack.
Got it. So the next question will be, how can content marketing and paid media work together strategy-wise? What would you guys suggest to mesh those into a cohesive marketing strategy?
I can go first on this one, Dean, if that's cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, content marketing requires homework, right? So if you're, going to go start really putting a lot of effort into content marketing in general. And again, remember what Dean and I both are saying is don't pit these two together. Ride, piggyback off of each other, if you will, right? So once you have a content calendar in place, right? Like, what type of format of content's going out on whatever day, on whatever platform, you can do a lot on the paid aspect with retargeting. So first and foremost, I think a lot of people get like Facebook ads really confused, and they consider boosting posts like a true form of paid advertising. And really for content marketing, it's perfect, right? You can go put out an article or a video, whatever it may be, whatever piece of content you want to have, put it out onto Facebook. And instead of running a whole ad, element to it, you can boost that post. You can hit demographics that you didn't have. And Facebook's now actually making it where you can, quite frankly, turn boosted posts into evergreen campaigns, right? You can consistently run boosted campaigns, and Facebook will choose the posts, if you will, that are doing better than others, and message you saying, hey, do you want to boost this particular post that's doing really well? So doing that particular component on whatever piece of content you have, whether it's a blog or a video, is great, because you're now amplifying that blog or video or whatever you have right away by getting Facebook to actually hit different audiences there. So that's definitely one component in general, and I'm getting a little bit of an echo here, but the next component here is on like paid strategies in general with organic and with content marketing. You can really do well by, if you're putting, let's just say from a funnel perspective, you got people going and reading an article, you can create one retargeting strategy of all these people that read that particular article and then hit them up on a lead gen display ad after. So that's where I think, again, this whole piggybacking really comes into play. Don't hesitate to really take advantage of retargeting campaigns and boosting, whether it's Facebook or whatever it may be, specifically Facebook for boosting any kind of content that you're trying to put out there.
Yeah, let me approach this from another angle as well, because I'm looking at the Zoom, and I think everyone here is like a local service provider: Steven, Terry, Paul, and so on and so forth. So let me kind of give an example and kind of get more granular here. I like to probably, if I have to kind of pick a platform, I like to start with Google Ads first with a lot of local businesses, just because relative to Facebook ads, it consumes less resources and less time, and you can start to get results pretty quickly. So we'll start with Google Ads first, which really just requires you to bid on XYZ keywords and have a really good landing page. The thing that I found working with a lot of service-based businesses, and what I'm about to say, everyone kind of will like nod their head, but everyone makes the same mistakes over and over again. We're all trying to convert on the very first touch point. And if any of you sell a service where, let's just say, if I had to quantify this, your service costs more than $1,000, initial upfront investment, you're going to get some resistance from your prospect, right? You're just not going to convert them always on the first touch point. With that said, we would do everything we can to convert on the first touch point with Google. But again, historically, your conversion rates, depending on the industry, will be anywhere from 5 to 20%. So you'll convert 5 to 20% on the first touch point, meaning they were exposed to your Google ads and they became a lead, not a customer, but a lead. So if you go over those numbers, that means, let's just say, we'll pick a middle point, let's say 10%. So 10% convert on the first touch point. That means 90 out of 100 people who saw your ad did not convert. They were not interested for whatever reason. Either you were too expensive, they had other questions, they got distracted, they're comparison shopping, blah, blah, blah. So these are the typical things that happens with someone who's shopping around. So this is where, to piggyback off of what Samad said, this is where you want to remarket or retarget. Now you can retarget with Google display ads or you can retarget with Facebook ads. If we go the Facebook ads route, this is where you need to tie it back to Andres' question. This is where you need some decent content pieces. Doesn't necessarily have to be something elaborate. It could be something as simple as a 90-second video testimonial with a client who's just elated about your service. Or it could, maybe they have some FAQs that you did not answer on the landing page. So maybe you want to direct them to an FAQ page and address some of the concerns that they may have had that they didn't get to ask you on the initial touch point. The point that I'm trying to deliver here is that in order to convert here in 2021, you need to touch your prospect multiple times. I think the data says that on average, a prospect needs 7 touch points before they can convert. And so too many of us as advertisers, we're trying to convert on the first touch point. Don't get me wrong, you should try to convert as many as you can on the first touch point. But here in 2021, we have the democratization of the internet where the consumer has more power than ever. Yeah, so they have more power and they have more choices. So because they have more choices, you can bet your bottom dollar that if they're talking to you, they're probably talking to a couple of other people as well. So the only way you can really win is through touch points. And the best way through touch points is through remarketing with good content pieces.
Right, always being top of mind. I think that's one of the main things for content marketing. So what are some common traps that happens both in paid and organic? People, either things that aren't true that people keep doing, or things that people keep trying to do that just don't work.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to say touch points. Yeah, I drew that into a lot of my clients. You can't convert on the first touch point. I think the biggest, I have this, I can't really show it, but there's this sort of funny comic strip that occurs between agency and client where as soon as the client hires a marketing agency, a couple months into it, one of the common complaints that they have that they go back to the agency with is like, oh my God, the leads are trash. And the agency sits there and says, no, the leads aren't trash. It's just you don't know how to close. So it's this common back and forth between both agency and client. Client says, well, the leads are trash. I'm not getting great leads, so I can't close them. Agency says, no, we're doing as best as we can. You just don't know how to sell. I think both sides have a good point here, but what they have to remember is you need to find common ground. So most likely you need touch points and remarketing. And then number two, automation, which really is kind of beyond this Zoom talk, but again, dealing with a lot of service professionals, especially small businesses. A lot of small businesses can benefit from automation, sales automation today, because the biggest problem with lead generation today is trying to get the prospect to show up for the initial consults, and then B, trying to close them after the initial consult. So that way they don't sit there and tell you, let me think about it, or, ghost you. I think that's the biggest challenge with a lot of service professionals. So they don't consider sales automation into part of their overall marketing system. And so when I talk about sales automation, I'm referring to email drips, text messaging, and voicemail drops. Okay, so if you're the type of business where you don't have a strong outbound sales operation, or your front desk is just too busy doing other things to focus on following up on prospects, you may want to look into automation.
Yeah, and that goes right into when the business owner says, hey, the leads are not, as strong, right? So if you don't have a good automation tools in place, right, those drips, that drip campaign and the text messages saying, hey, you got to call in 2 hours, they're just probably not even going to show up. And that's probably going to be the first, difficult thing for a business owner to kind of grasp on. They're going to be like, oh, these guys are just flaky. And solve that right away with that automation. It's definitely a key component. And actually just in general, I think for a lot of service-based providers, like a good solid CRM could really tie content marketing and paid really well. And my weapon of choice is always HubSpot. I like it mainly because it does that really solid job of of a customer centric way of doing marketing, right? Like it starts as a CRM and it takes care of, following people when it comes to retargeting, as well as you can actually do your paid ads right through it. So that, like, those type of tools are things that, some people just don't typically, want to go look into, mainly because they think of it as a cost expense that they just don't need. They're actually not as expensive as you might think that they are. And they really do a good job of marrying paid and organic together.
Yeah. I've always said that most people don't really have a lead generation problem, even though they think they do when they try to hire me. They have a lead conversion problem. And there's a big difference between the two. It's certainly true that for many of you who maybe have never done any form of lead generation, you probably think you have a lead generation problem. But once you start doing lead generation, which I think is relatively easy, I say it because I have a lot of experience. What's a lot harder is lead conversion. And what I found is that if we simply implement good automation and good remarketing, which again just goes back to touch points, that'll solve a lot of your quote unquote lead generation problems. Because it's not really a lead gen problem, it's a lead conversion problem.
And to tie that all right back up, right? Don't forget, guys, like, content could be touch points, right? The content should be as well as touch points. So that's why, again, these two just go well together.
And what do you guys think? I know we touched a little bit on this earlier, but if you guys could each give me like 3 low-hanging fruit that local businesses could use when it comes to, both paid and organic. Something that's not going to take too much time, but it's going to make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. And by the way, I'd love to be able to take some questions from the group here, because I know sometimes we can just speak in generalities here. But low-hanging fruit. So number one, and I say this as a perfectionist, don't try to be perfect when you're first starting out, especially if you're trying to do it yourself rather than hire someone. Obviously, some people are more, strapped for budget than others. But if you're trying to do it yourself, don't be perfect. Regardless if you're trying to do YouTube, LinkedIn, your own podcast, it doesn't need to be perfect. So that's number one. Number two, I think the biggest issue, I've always found that marketing isn't necessarily like rocket science in the sense that it's really hard, but I do think it's hard work in terms of being consistent. Most people I found where they fail, especially with content marketing, is consistency. So they're not consistent with their social media content. They're not consistent with their writing. They're not consistent with their podcasting. I look at content marketing and marketing in general as sort of like going to a marketing gym, if you will. You need to, in the beginning, it's really hard to develop that habit to kind of go to a gym and like start working out, because no one likes to go to a gym. But once you start to do it and you start to develop that habit, marketing just feels a lot easier from a content perspective. And then on a paid side, again, just because a lot of people are local businesses, a lot gets made about Facebook advertising being sort of like the sexier marketing tool. And I think in some ways it is, but I wouldn't necessarily sleep on Google Ads if you're a local business. I would start with Google first. And then, hopefully within 1 or 2 months, you're making money, whether it's like 3x return on ad spend or 15x or whatever it is. And once money makes money, you can start to take that revenue and reinvest it into other forms of marketing. Maybe reinvest it back into Google Ads, maybe do more Facebook, maybe do more SEO. But I would start with Google Ads first, because too often I see a lot of people try to hit a home run with Facebook advertising, they strike it out and they, squander their budget or whatever, and they get disappointed and demoralized. And then they're like, oh, well, this whole marketing doesn't work for me anymore. So let me just go back to whatever I was doing before, which probably wasn't working either. So I will pick the low hanging fruit, which is Google Ads on a paid advertising side.
And for me, like the biggest thing in general, when the question of lowest hanging fruit comes into play, Dean, I totally agree with you on, on the perfection element, right? Like you don't need to be perfect on a page or an ad or a piece of content in general. But the three lowest hanging fruit are really that you can easily turn one piece of content into you can dual purpose your content. If you sit back for a second and think about how that piece could be, quite frankly, spliced differently, just by cutting it, like one question of a long video could be one piece of content somewhere else. And I know that sounds way difficult, but you got to almost just take 2 steps back and start thinking of, content marketing and marketing in general as a way to, be out there on the internet and, invite people to work with you, if you will, right? So if you were to start dual purposing your content, and finding those little golden nuggets by actually spending a little bit of time looking at those, those videos that you just recorded of yourself on whatever topic it may be, and say, you know what, that one might be really solid on one platform versus the other. That's going to pay dividends in general, because it's still cheaper to cut one piece out than create a whole other video. So I do kind of consider that a low hanging fruit, even though most people probably are scared of that particular concept. It sounds a lot scarier than it really is, right? So I think that that's something that we should really kind of take into consideration. The second one, after multi-purpose content, is streamlining everything you do, and it's really a little bit of like work habit optimization, if you will. So like just a little piece that I like doing, and Andres probably hates or doesn't want to hear this particular conversation. But I mean, I'm answering emails now. I'm just doing Loom videos, and I'm streamlining getting him content for Funnel Marketer, as an example, by saying, hey, look, this is how I would do it, and turn that into a piece of content that could be living online in one form or fashion. So like streamlining how you kind of start producing content for content marketing, knowing that that piece of video or whatever it may be could also be used on paid, is another mindset change that you would really want to kind of focus off of here. You can streamline just even getting through your emails and turning probably five to six pieces of content right from there. And then the other one, again, kind of going back to what you said, Dean, on the gym, it's cadence. And again, all three of these are just, they're all low hanging fruits, but they take the most, mindset shift, if you will, right? So you got to take that into consideration. But if you make it a habit, if you go into your Google Calendar and you live and die by the calendar and spend an hour to 2 hours, just like whatever it may be, to kind of go and, craft an article or put together a couple videos, that's going to, just take care of a lot of difficulties of, is this working for me or not? Most people, the biggest, again, misconcept here is, quite frankly, they just don't let it last long enough, right? Like they kind of cut their losses before really it actually starting to pay off. And it has to go into cadence. Like the biggest thing would be spend time daily on this. Don't make it 4 hours, make it like 10, 15 minutes. Maybe it's just as simple as answering your email, and you're gonna, actually see some dividends coming out of this.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the marginal gains theory when it comes to marketing. For those people not familiar with the marginal gains theory, all it says is that if you take like your high level goal and then you break it down by like little minute tasks, like what do you have to do each and every single day or a week, it just becomes so much easier. Because if all you do is just like 1% every single day or 1% every single week, that works sort of like compound interest, where over time in 3 to 6 months you will start to see amazing results. And again, I kind of equate this just to like weight loss. Like I had my own weight loss journey a couple of years ago where I dropped like 25 pounds, which I never thought I would. And it took me, if I recall, 6 to 8 months to lose 25 pounds. But as we all know, there was no way I was going to lose 25 pounds within a month, right? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. But if you break it down, if it took me 8 months to lose 25 pounds, that's roughly 3 pounds per month, which is really, really doable, right? So if I'm just trying to lose 3 pounds per month, I just have to sit there and break it down on a daily basis. What do I need to see? What do I need to do each and every single day? So I take my experience of weight loss and I've applied it to marketing as well. And that's what I teach to my clients as well, which is, obviously you hire me to get you results as quickly as possible. But the reality is, like, marketing success, it's never overnight. It really is, to be honest. Marketing is hard because it takes patience more and discipline more than anything else. And I found that's something a lot of us don't necessarily always have nowadays. And that's something a lot of us need to work on.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for people to really understand, that, both paid and organic take a long time to really, do what people wanted to do, which is get the leads, get the conversions. But it's something that if you want the results, you just have to do it. You got to put in the time, and you have to, like you said, have a long-term plan and also short-term results so you can see that you're actually on track. So we just have about a little bit over 15 minutes left. We have one more question. So what is the primary distinction between Google Ads and Facebook Ads, and when is the right time to use each one of those as a business?
Yeah. So I kind of touched on this a few minutes ago, but let me elaborate. The best way for me to explain it is like Google Ads is you tapping into demand, whereas Facebook Ads is you trying to create demand, although there are exceptions to this. So what I mean by that is when you're tapping into demand, like with Google, people are, if you're a local business, people are probably looking for you. Like they're probably looking for a physical therapist in Rockville or a real estate agent in Gaithersburg. So there's existing demand that you can tap into. So that's Google Ads. And that's why ideally, not always, but most of the time, I like to start out with Google Ads first because it's just so much easier to make money off of. Whereas with Facebook Ads, you're trying to create demand with some exceptions. Creating demand in my mind means you need a full-fledged funnel and a lot of resources to convince a prospect who, while they're, scrolling through their Facebook feed, they never even thought of you. You need to put in a lot of creatives and resources to convince them that they now have a problem that needs to be solved, and you're the solution provider to their problem. The data varies a lot, but I've seen data that says if you're advertising on Facebook, and don't quote me on these numbers, I just want to give you guys some basic numbers. Maybe only 5% are ready to buy like right now, right? So only 5% are ready to buy right now. 10% could be in that consideration phase, and then the rest, which is I guess 80%, aren't even like problem aware. So once you've done everything you can to convert that 5 to 20% that's like ready to buy right now, what are your creatives and what does your funnel look like to make people go from problem aware to product aware and to consider you as a service provider? That's a lot harder. And so because that requires so much more work, that's what I mean by saying you're trying to create demand, because you're literally trying to convince people that, hey, you need to buy what I'm selling, which is a lot harder to do for a lot of people, especially if you don't have good creatives. But I'm sure Samad has some thoughts here too.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I would say in general for any service as well as product-based company, right? Like it really goes into what is your offer, right? In general, most small businesses will say, well, we offer a free consult. And great, but everyone else is doing that too. So, you can't consider that to be your only call to action, if you will, on paid advertising. You don't really want to have a lot of content marketing having a call to action that's a free consult, because it just looks like a solicit, right? Like it's a solicitation at that point. So if you really go back to, again, the basics and just like start figuring out how you streamline your offers, right? Like you can come up with a different way to offer a different element in general. So if it's a free consult or a free product, a free article, that can be one offer that lives on Facebook that helps this everlasting journey of marketing, really, right? Like you got to keep kind of putting people into a journey on Facebook and Google. And I think that most businesses just don't really look at their offers carefully enough to come up with something that's a little bit more, at least, on that particular day and time that someone is scrolling on Facebook, might be enough for someone to actually say, yeah, I might, want to have that piece of information. I'll let you guys send that to me so I can read it at a later point. So again, Dean, what you said on, Facebook is definitely less of a, more of a, like, you got to get more out of it, right? Like you got to actually create a funnel for Facebook and have a lot of different touch points. is 100% accurate from that particular component. And on Google, you can just really go right away and start getting that 5 to 20%, but still work off your offer. Like your offer is probably your best way of, trying to be a little bit different than another, service-based industry, whatever company that's also doing, competing in that same marketplace.
Got it.
Yeah.
So now that's actually all the questions that we have, but if anybody has, we want to open up the floor. If anybody has any other questions, we'll be more than happy to take them.
Questions?
Anybody?
Don't be shy.
It might have been a lot. There's a lot there. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I did put something in the chat for the Chamber's Facebook post when Eric from ENS Media put up his podcast from Boardroom Salon for Men, a new member. It got 252 views with 302 people reached. So, I mean, that did really well, did better than any of our other posts. And so video is definitely people love video and podcasts. It's been doing really well. And can the speakers please put your contact information in the chat? And everybody knows how to save the chat. You just go to where it says to, and then you see a thing called file. And then after that, there's 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots and just say save chat. So thank you, Dean.
So Tim asks, what kind of creative do you put on your Google landing page? So I actually just wrote a ebook on this called Superhero High Converting Landing Pages. It's roughly about 15 different things you need to convert on your landing page if you're running Google Ads. Off the top of my head, good messaging, reviews, 2 or 3 good reviews should do the trick. Good copy, placement of your contact form in the right position, address, authentic images. So a lot of stuff I'm kind of spitting off the top of my head. It sounds really obvious, but the trick, and this only comes from experience, is placement and where they go. Like I can sit here and tell you, well, you need 2 or 3 good reviews, but if you don't know where they go on the landing page, it's not going to really help you much. But I found with conversion rate optimization, it's not really one thing that moves the needle with landing pages. It's a multiple things. Like any one element can maybe only contribute 1 or 2% in a uplift in conversions. But what matters is all of these elements working together as a whole or as aggregates. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but yeah.
And I can take a whack at what Tim had here on the Google landing page in general. And I think this again is another misconcept or just confusion in general in terms of like landing pages, right? So most people are not looking to create a long form landing page. So, Tim, what you're saying here or what you're asking is like, what do you want to have on a landing page in general? Up top, you can obviously start out with a video that's, welcoming them or giving them an offer or going into a little bit more of your details of your service. But you want to really tie it in specifically to that ad that you're running on Google in this case, right? Like if you're doing a Google search ad that you'd only have 2 to 3 lines of text there. And one of the pieces of text that you have is that you're doing a free whatever on top of, coming in, you're also just doing an evaluation of their house, if you will. I'm just making that up, right? Like an overall evaluation of your HVAC system. That's another one that just came into my mind, but you'll want to talk about that in that video. So that landing page should directly address on the video, as well as on the first 2 lines that are the header text there, if you will, that particular ad. And landing pages can be duplicated and changed very quickly for multiple different ads. So Tim, I would say, I know you brought up lead pages, consistently create more and more landing pages and tailor each landing page to a different ad, and you're going to get better results just from that. And just because there's a little bit of blank space here in this in the lull of the conversation, one piece on the long form copy of a landing page, I do think that most people don't take into consideration that people do want to read their testimonials and all of that, and maybe a lot of people come back and say, hey, that's all on our website, or that's on this, so we have it. If it's not on that particular landing page, though, where they're scrolling, and we now have a habit of kind of scrolling a little bit, so you want to be serving that type of information, Tim, on the landing page. Like, have your reviews there, have what other people are talking about on that particular service, because you're just trying to consolidate it and have it all in one spot to help them, fill out that form for you, right? Like, if you want to get that lead out of it, try to serve them as much of that info as possible that is all in one spot. It's not as cumbersome or more of a difficult piece to digest for a person that's reading it. If they don't want to see it, they can scroll right back up.
And that's one thing that I think Samad and I made a whole video on this, about that people don't click as much on websites anymore. So landing pages are really becoming really crucial when it comes to ads or any type of organic post. You want all the information that they might need and more on that landing page.
Totally.
And your homepage is not your landing page. I think that's the biggest issue. A lot of, I see it from agencies as well, but agencies, DIY business owners, they always use their homepage as their landing page. It's the worst idea you can ever do, but just because your conversion rate is going to be really, really low. Use a dedicated landing page.
Or hire these guys because they're experts in their field, and you do what you do for your business. And our marketing committee in the Rockville Chamber of Commerce are made up of experts in their field. So I just highly recommend all of them. They've been helping the chamber also get our message out. And I want to thank you all. Does anybody have any wrap up before I want to say a couple of upcoming events?
Tim, I have one more question. How well do polls and surveys work for lead generation, either inside FB, Facebook, or via SurveyMonkey or Constant Contact? So surveys, well, I like to call them quizzes, actually. Quizzes work really, 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 really well as a lead generation tool inside Facebook. My experience with Google, not so much. But with Facebook, they work. So just so people know, like, we call them quizzes, but really what they really are is they're pre-qualification forms. But the reason why we call them quizzes is, for those of you who are here back in the day, BuzzFeed was very well known for popularizing quizzes and making them mainstream, where they used to come out with these quizzes where it would ask people, oh, what superhero were you in the workforce? And so what you'd have to do is like fill out 5 questions, and based on how you answered it, it would tell you you're like Superman at the workplace or whatever. So they will make it fun. So BuzzFeed popularized that method, and so as marketers, we do what we do best, which is what we copy things. And then we took that idea, we ran with it. The reason why we call them quizzes is because it sounds less, I guess, salesy than a pre-qualification form. But basically, depending on the business you're in, I think a lot of local business could benefit from running quizzes where you're basically trying to pre-qualify your prospect and then give them an offer at the end. What you have to be aware of with quizzes, though, is you need a really good funnel, so good sales automation, and B, you need to be ready to handle a lot of volume as well. some businesses can't handle the volume that quizzes can bring in. So the pro is that we can bring an avalanche of leads. Some of them may be, you know, not so great leads, but some of them could be really great leads. But in order to handle and qualify some of these leads, you need good front desk operations as well. I think, Samad, you've done some quizzes as well.
Definitely. And yeah, Tim, like your question of like either like doing them right on Facebook or on SurveyMonkey or Constant Contact, it just depends on what the line, the, you know, the offer of that particular quiz would be, right? Like the call to action to get someone to fill out that particular quiz. If you're just looking for actual data, right? Like you just want to get yeses and nos and some answers for different things, because that might be a way to get what your next piece of content might be or your next product might be. I'd do that in Facebook, no questions asked. If you're looking to retarget people and get people to, you know, see some other form of content that you might already have or a display ad, then use SurveyMonkey or a type form, probably less Constant Contact altogether. Like a type form would probably be my weapon of choice on that one.
Okay, I want to thank all of you. We're almost at our time, and I want to just say two things. Chamber members, everybody gets a free podcast by Eric, and you could be highlighted like we just did on the Boardroom for Men. So, and we also have, Dean, do you want to say real quick about content for our website as well?
Oh, you mean the micro content thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we're pushing a new initiative where we found that we get really good engagement and interest from the people who consume our Facebook and LinkedIn posts for the Rockville Chamber. So basically what we're asking is, if you have like good micro content, and what I mean by micro content is like you have some images of you interacting with customers or some good news or stuff like that that you want to share with us, we'd be happy to post it to our social media profile. Let me find a link while I'm talking. That way you guys get a better visual of what I'm referring to. But yeah, so ideally we've seen like shops and businesses who would just send us images of them interacting with customers or maybe some good news, and then they'd give us the body copy and we post that, and you know, gets pretty good engagement, and it's free exposure for you as well. So yeah, we're always looking for more stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And how about backlinks? You know, the chamber offers everybody for like $50 a year, right? Or is it 25? I don't know.
50.
It's $50, you know, enhanced web package. You have a whole page on our website for your business. You could put videos, you could put photos, you could change content whenever you want. And, you know, the backlinks are really important for your SEO, right, guys?
Backlinks are definitely, the more you can get out there, the better it is. So if you're looking at it from that particular perspective, the $50 for the enhanced is a pretty cost effective. It's extremely cost effective to get a backlink to what's considered an authority domain, like a chamber could have and does have in this case, right? Like, you know, Chamber of Commerces are definitely authority driving a domain in general. So yeah, backlinks for sure. So yeah, buy that $50 enhanced. It's a simple way to do it.
Thank you. Okay, tomorrow we're having a lunch and learn at 11:30, and it's hosted by Aaronson's and SHS Services, and it's a major money opportunity with the employee retention tax credit. There are businesses getting a lot of money. So you want to be on this webinar tomorrow at 11:30 and learn about that. Our next Mix and Mingle is June 17th with the women business owners. And that's sponsored by Barclay and Kennedy, and that's on Zoom. And then July 15th, we're in person. And we're going to combine our Mix and Mingle at Pinstripes with a marketing webinar. It's going to be interactive, and the topic is going to be creating blogs 101. And the moderator is Tim Fahey, and the panelists are Heather Mahoney and Beth Carroll. So we'll see you at Pinstripes 5:30 on July 15th. And we can't wait to come back. And I want to thank Andres and Dean and Samad It was a great marketing roundtable this morning. I always learn so much from you guys. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.